everyone, and welcome to the Environmental Science and Engineering Podcast channel. Today, we are going to talk about a very special city, Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Mecca is not only a sacred city for millions of Muslims, but also a place that faces enormous environmental challenges, such as water supply, wastewater management, and solid waste control. Especially during the Hajj season, the extraordinary increase in population makes the city one of the most unique cases in the world in terms of infrastructure. Let's think about it for a moment. Mecca normally has a population of around 2 million, but during Hajj, this number can rise to 4 million within just a few weeks, and in some years even more. That means the population nearly doubles. In cities where such dramatic seasonal fluctuations occur, providing water, collecting and treating wastewater, and managing solid waste becomes much more complex. Infrastructure systems are designed based on certain capacities. For example, the capacity of a wastewater treatment plant is calculated according to the city's population, per capita wastewater generation, and industrial inputs. But in a place like Mecca, this capacity can be exceeded in a very short time. Of course, engineers plan for minimum and maximum flows, but when the population doubles for a month every year, operating these facilities becomes extremely challenging. And there is also another unique dimension of the Hajj period: the ritual of animal sacrifice. Every year, millions of animals are slaughtered, which produces slaughterhouse wastewater with a very high organic load. This wastewater is extremely polluted and, if not managed properly, can cause serious harm to the environment. In this podcast series, we will look for answers to several questions. How does Mecca secure its water supply? How is wastewater collected and treated? How is solid waste disposed of? What are the characteristics of the underground water source known as Zamzam? And most importantly, how does the city handle all this extraordinary burden during the Hajj? We will also talk about Saudi Arabia's long-term vision for the future. When we talk about Mecca, one of the most critical points is the population. The city usually has about 2.4 million people, but during Hajj, this number almost multiplies within a very short time. So in a city with such seasonal fluctuations, water supply, wastewater collection, and waste management are truly major challenges. It makes you wonder, how do they actually handle this load during Hajj? To begin, let's start with the normal population and the city's daily water demand.
You've touched on a very important point. Mecca's population is close to 2.5 million. Outside the Hajj season, the average daily per capita water consumption is about 190 liters. This means the total water demand is around 454 million liters per day, or 454,000 cubic meters. But the critical part is the Hajj period. During this time, water consumption in the city nearly doubles, reaching 770,000 cubic meters per day. In fact, during the preparation period before Hajj, on a single day, about 1 billion liters, equivalent to 1 million cubic meters of water, was pumped into Mecca and the holy sites. Throughout the entire Hajj season, total water distribution can reach up to 41 million cubic meters. This clearly shows us that Mecca's infrastructure operates at the capacity of a typical large city for most of the year, but during Hajj, it faces an extraordinary surge in demand. That requires water supply, treatment, and distribution systems to be designed with a high degree of flexibility and strength.
We've talked about Mecca's population and how water demand skyrockets during the Hajj. Now the question is, how is such an enormous water demand actually met? Because Mecca is not a coastal city. It's located in a mountainous and rugged area. Could you explain where Mecca's water comes from and how such a massive system is managed?
That's an excellent point. Mecca is almost 80 kilometers away from the Red Sea and sits about 270 meters above sea level. Transporting water to the city itself is a huge engineering challenge. Mecca's water supply system relies heavily on seawater desalination. In fact, about 90% of the city's water comes from desalination plants located along the Red Sea coast. The most important facilities are the Shuaibah desalination plant near Jeddah and the Al-Shuqaiq desalination plant further south. At these facilities, seawater is treated using advanced reverse osmosis systems to remove salt and produce drinking water. The Shuaibah complex, for example, launched its first unit in 2001, expanded with additional units in 2003, and later grew further with the modern Shuaibah 3 RO plant. Similarly, construction of Shuqaiq 2 began in 2007 and reached commercial operation around 2010, while Shuqaiq 3 RO came online around 2021-2022, playing a critical role in regional water supply. In short, since the early 2000s, these plants have continuously expanded their capacity to meet demand. Transporting this water to Mecca is another engineering achievement. The city lies 70 to 80 kilometers inland and is nearly 270 meters higher than sea level. To overcome this, massive pumping stations and high-pressure pipelines are used. The water is first collected in huge reservoirs and then distributed through the network. Especially during the Hajj season, the system is reinforced to handle the extraordinary surge in demand. Of course, desalination isn't the only source. Groundwater is also used to a limited extent, with the most famous example being the Zamzam well, a source considered sacred in Islam. The quality of Zamzam water is constantly monitored, and scientific studies confirm it maintains its natural mineral composition. However, Zamzam water is not used in the main municipal drinking water network. Instead, it holds religious and symbolic value. Pilgrims can drink it from dedicated fountains inside the Grand Mosque and even take packaged Zamzam water home with them after Hajj or Umrah.
So, who exactly manages all of this? Is it handled by local municipalities or another authority in Saudi Arabia?
The entire system is managed by the National Water Company of Saudi Arabia. Under projects like the Mecca Water Supply and Sewage Network project, extensive tunnels and pipelines have been built to ensure continuous distribution across the city's challenging terrain. So we can say that water supply in Mecca is not only about desalination, it's also about massive engineering works in transport and distribution.
And how does the infrastructure cope with this demand during Hajj? Do the plants themselves increase capacity, or is there another approach?
Yes, to handle this surge, desalination plants pump more water than usual. Facilities like Shuaibah and Shuqaiq are pushed close to their maximum operating capacity, and additional volumes are directed from storage and transmission systems in Jeddah toward Mecca. During Hajj, a special emergency water supply plan is activated. Reservoirs are pre-filled, pumping stations run 24/7, and distribution network pressure in Mecca is temporarily increased. So both the actual amount of water pumped and the logistics are adapted specifically for the Hajj crowd. And since reverse osmosis is a physical modular system, not a biological process, it can increase capacity by adding modules. That flexibility is a big advantage in places where population loads fluctuate dramatically.
That's really impressive. So, Saudi Arabia manages to cover about 90% of Mecca's water demand through desalination. By the way, for our listeners, we have a dedicated desalination episode where we explained in detail how seawater is turned into fresh drinking water and what technologies are involved. You may want to check that out as well. Now, water supply is one side of the challenge, but Mecca's other big test is wastewater management. Because in a city where the population doubles within weeks, collecting and treating wastewater becomes an enormous challenge. On top of that, Mecca sits on mountainous terrain, so even conveying wastewater is a major engineering task. My question is this: during normal times, how is wastewater handled, and what happens during the Hajj when the system faces extreme pressure?
You've touched on a very important point. Wastewater management in Mecca is indeed critical. The city's sewerage network has long been under pressure, both due to the difficult topography and the massive seasonal population swings. Currently, the two key facilities handling Mecca's wastewater are the advanced biological treatment plants located in the Orana Valley and the Hadar Valley. These plants rely on conventional biological processes, such as trickling filters and activated sludge. Together, they can treat around 300,000 cubic meters per day. That is close to meeting the city's regular demand, but compared to modern facilities, their capacity remains limited. During Hajj, the situation changes entirely. Under normal conditions, Mecca's daily water consumption is manageable, but during Hajj, the population surge pushes water use beyond 750,000 cubic meters per day. Naturally, that translates into wastewater flows that overwhelm the existing infrastructure, creating risks of overflow and undertreatment. That's why Saudi authorities have recently focused heavily on capacity expansion and modernization. New projects are being implemented under public-private partnership contracts. For example, tenders were received in July 2025, with contract awards expected by the end of the year. The plan is for the Orana plant to start with a capacity of 250,000 cubic meters per day, expandable to 500,000. Similarly, the Hadar plant will begin at 100,000 and later expand to 250,000. These new facilities are designed to incorporate advanced biological treatment processes and potentially even membrane bioreactors, significantly boosting both capacity and efficiency.
So, the older system is limited in capacity, but with these new investments, a major upgrade is on the horizon. What about reuse? Is wastewater reclamation part of the plan? For instance, using treated wastewater for non-potable purposes like toilet flushing or irrigation?
That's an excellent question. Under Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 framework, wastewater reuse is a key strategy. The target is to reuse about 70% of treated wastewater by 2030. With the new plants in Mecca, this vision will be fully integrated. Treated water will be reused for agricultural irrigation, landscaping, and even certain industrial processes. This reduces water scarcity while also protecting the environment. Of course, Hajj brings unique challenges. For example, in the MENA area, during the ritual animal sacrifice, about 1.5 to 2 million animals are slaughtered each year. This generates slaughterhouse wastewater with extremely high organic loads. In 2023, a very innovative solution was introduced, a mobile treatment unit. Developed by GI Aquatech, this nanotechnology-based unit treated about 20,000 cubic meters of slaughterhouse wastewater, and 100% of the treated water was reused for agriculture. In other words, zero liquid discharge was achieved. The success was so significant that 3 more mobile units were planned for the 2024 Hajj.
So the older system is limited in capacity, but with these new investments, a major upgrade is on the horizon. What about reuse? Is wastewater reclamation part of the plan? For instance, using treated wastewater for non-potable purposes like toilet flushing or irrigation?
That's an excellent question. Under Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 framework, wastewater reuse is a key strategy. The target is to reuse about 70% of treated wastewater by 2030. With the new plants in Mecca, this vision will be fully integrated. Treated water will be reused for agricultural irrigation, landscaping, and even certain industrial processes. This reduces water scarcity while also protecting the environment. Of course, Hajj brings unique challenges. For example, in the MENA area, during the ritual animal sacrifice, about 1.5 to 2 million animals are slaughtered each year. This generates slaughterhouse wastewater with extremely high organic loads. In 2023, a very innovative solution was introduced, a mobile treatment unit. Developed by GI Aquatech, this nanotechnology-based unit treated about 20,000 cubic meters of slaughterhouse wastewater, and 100% of the treated water was reused for agriculture. In other words, zero liquid discharge was achieved. The success was so significant that 3 more mobile units were planned for the 2024 Hajj.
So the older system is limited in capacity, but with these new investments, a major upgrade is on the horizon. What about reuse? Is wastewater reclamation part of the plan? For instance, using treated wastewater for non-potable purposes like toilet flushing or irrigation?
That's an excellent question. Under Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 framework, wastewater reuse is a key strategy. The target is to reuse about 70% of treated wastewater by 2030. With the new plants in Mecca, this vision will be fully integrated. Treated water will be reused for agricultural irrigation, landscaping, and even certain industrial processes. This reduces water scarcity while also protecting the environment. Of course, Hajj brings unique challenges. For example, in the MENA area, during the ritual animal sacrifice, about 1.5 to 2 million animals are slaughtered each year. This generates slaughterhouse wastewater with extremely high organic loads. In 2023, a very innovative solution was introduced, a mobile treatment unit. Developed by GI Aquatech, this nanotechnology-based unit treated about 20,000 cubic meters of slaughterhouse wastewater, and 100% of the treated water was reused for agriculture. In other words, zero liquid discharge was achieved. The success was so significant that 3 more mobile units were planned for the 2024 Hajj.
So in summary, Mecca's wastewater management is essentially twofold. During normal periods, the fixed treatment plants operate, but during Hajj, both capacity upgrades and mobile solutions are brought in to handle the extraordinary load.
Exactly. Once the new investments are completed, Mecca will be able to manage not only its resident population, but also the massive seasonal influx during Hajj in a safe and sustainable way. And that aligns perfectly with Saudi Arabia's long-term sustainability vision.
We've talked about wastewater treatment in normal periods, but I think the real challenge is during the Hajj. Millions of people are in Mecca at the same time, water consumption rises dramatically, and naturally wastewater multiplies as well. How does the system hold up under such intense pressure? What operational measures are taken? How was it handled in the past? And how is it managed today?
That's a very important point. Wastewater management during the Hajj is perhaps Mecca's greatest environmental challenge. There are 3 main aspects here: operational measures, temporary and innovative solutions, and the Green Hajj vision. Let's start with operational measures. During Hajj, Mecca's water and wastewater systems are monitored 24/7. Control centers track sewage flow rates, pumping station performance, and tank levels in real time. If there's a bottleneck or risk of overflow, engineers can intervene immediately. In addition, more than 2,000 extra technicians and field workers are deployed specifically for Hajj. This intensive operation minimizes the risk of overflows, blockages, or breakdowns. Now, for temporary and innovative solutions, one of the biggest challenges is the slaughterhouse wastewater generated in MENA during the animal sacrifice ritual. Every year, about 1.5 to 2 million animals are slaughtered, producing wastewater with extremely high organic loads. In 2023, a mobile treatment unit was deployed here. Using a nanotechnology-based system, this compact unit treated about 20,000 cubic meters of slaughterhouse wastewater, and 100% of the treated water was reused for agriculture. In other words, zero liquid discharge was achieved. The success was so significant that 3 more mobile units were planned for the 2024 Hajj. Beyond that, portable toilets and ablution stations are installed in the busiest areas, and they are frequently emptied and cleaned. Solid waste isn't forgotten either. For a full week after Hajj, thousands of extra bins, compactors and trucks are mobilized to handle the massive piles of garbage left behind. And finally, the Green Hajj vision. Saudi authorities are not only focusing on technical solutions, but also on raising environmental awareness among pilgrims. Campaigns encourage water conservation and discourage littering. Items like Ifram garments and plastic bottles are collected and recycled. In the past, some untreated sewage would be discharged into valleys or even the Red Sea. But today, thanks to both permanent plants and temporary solutions, the system is far more controlled. Looking ahead, with Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia aims to reuse about 70% of treated wastewater. This will make the Hajj much more sustainable from an environmental perspective.
So it's not just about technical infrastructure. Awareness campaigns, innovative solutions, and long-term vision are also part of the picture. Managing the waste of millions of people in just a few days is no easy task. But it seems that today there's a much more systematic and environmentally friendly approach.
Absolutely. Hajj is not only a religious event, it's also a massive test of environmental and infrastructure management. The steps Saudi Arabia has taken here can serve as a model for other large-scale events in the future.
So what about solid waste in Mecca? What methods are used for its disposal?
At the national level, under the framework of Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia aims to divert the majority of its waste away from landfills through recycling, composting, and waste-to-energy projects. For example, the country's target is to keep about 90% of waste out of landfills, with around 40% going to recycling, 31% to composting, and 16% to energy recovery. Looking at the literature and scientific studies, we find that in Mecca, the average composition of solid waste is about 50% organic matter, 25% plastics, 20% paper and cardboard, and the rest made up of glass, metals, and textiles. During Hajj, waste management involves some recycling and composting initiatives, but these are mostly project-based and limited in scope. The majority of waste is still landfilled and not always in fully engineered sanitary landfill conditions. Some sites lack proper liners and cover systems. While biogas recovery and landfill gas utilization are part of the national strategy, they are not yet widely implemented in Mecca. Recycling is more visible in specific projects, such as those in Mina, but it's far from citywide.
But doesn't leachate from buried waste seep into the soil? Isn't that especially dangerous for groundwater?
That's exactly right. Leachate from waste burial is a major risk in Mecca. It contains pollutants ranging from ammonia to heavy metals, and during sudden rainfall events, there's a real danger of infiltration into the aquifers. Official plans do aim to improve landfill engineering and ensure that leachate is collected and treated, but as of now, the issue is not fully resolved.
So why doesn't Mecca just incinerate its waste or turn it into biogas?
Because the waste composition isn't well suited for that. The organic fraction is too wet and variable, while the plastics create severe pollution when incinerated. Incinerators are both expensive and environmentally risky. As for biogas, it requires source-separated waste collection, but in Mecca, waste is still collected as a mixed stream. That makes landfilling the cheapest and fastest option for now. Of course, under Vision 2030, waste-to-energy projects may become more prominent, but the current priorities are focused on treatment plants and improving logistics. There's another factor too. Saudi Arabia already has abundant energy resources thanks to oil. Energy access isn't a problem. If anything, they have surplus. So investing in costly incineration or biogas infrastructure isn't very economical. The main focus here is reducing the environmental impacts of waste, controlling leachate, and improving recycling. Energy isn't the pressing issue for them.
Right, so we've reached the end of today's episode. We had a very detailed discussion on Mecca's water supply, wastewater treatment, and solid waste management. We examined the challenges created by the massive population increase during Hajj and the technical, operational, and temporary solutions developed to handle them. We also touched on Saudi Arabia's Green Hajj vision, the critical role of desalination for Mecca, and the growing importance of wastewater reuse in the future. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yes, I think this was a valuable episode. Beyond Mecca, there are other cities in the world facing similar challenges. For example, Karbala in Iraq sees 20 to 25 million visitors during the Arba'een pilgrimage. In India, the city of Haridwar hosts millions during the Kumbh Mela festival. The common thread is this: most of the year, these cities have relatively modest populations, but at certain religious or cultural events, they suddenly face extraordinary crowds. And this creates enormous demands on water, food, energy, and waste management. So Mecca is not alone. It's part of a global set of cities where seasonal population surges test the limits of urban infrastructure.
Thank you for listening to the Environmental Science and Engineering podcast. We'll see you again in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share our channel. Take care.
See you next time.